Welcome, everybody, to the Gives in the Bank Recruiting Podcast presented by BuckeyeScoop.com. It is Thursday, December 10th episode. I'm Marc Givler, joined by Bill Greene, as always. Just be the two of us today. A lot to talk about, actually, but I think what we first wanted to do, we were supposed to have the Ohio State-Michigan game this weekend. Unfortunately, we're not going to have that for the first time in a very long time. We would like to kind of go back over some past recruiting battles. We thought we'd reminisce a little bit over some past recruiting battles we've covered that were interesting between Ohio State and Michigan. We'll try and keep this a little bit shorter than maybe we would have normally with the game not being played, but we still wanted to kind of have that segment. So, Bill, we'll start with you on this. What's one of the, if you could point to one or two memorable recruiting battles over the years that you covered between Ohio State and Michigan, what is maybe one or two that jump out to you that you remember covering and being like, wow, this is fascinating?
Yeah, the one that got everybody's attention, before Urban got there, the last year there when Ohio State had that bad year, man, and it was 3-star heaven all the way. Kyle committed. He was one of the jewels of the Ohio State class as an O-lineman. And Kyle and I were really tight, and he's a great kid. And he was just really concerned about, what was going on at Ohio State. Turmoil with Tressel being let go, Fickle coming in as an interim, and it was just a bad year. There was a lot of stuff still going on at Ohio State that everybody knew about, and Luke was trying to get a handle on that. Team was very good. Bowman was recruiting Kyle, and everybody knew Bowman was not going to be the O-line coach at Ohio State, no matter who got the job. So, Kyle was one of those guys that what was big to him was either being at a camp or a practice or a game or whatever. And if he was on film, he really liked sending that film to the coach, and going over his performance. And that was really him going into his senior year was, St. Ignatius was probably going to play 14, 15 games that year. And he really liked going over his performance with his position coach. And I think he knew that just wasn't going to happen at Ohio State. It was such a mess. He eventually decommitted from Ohio State and did go to Michigan. He did let me know everything that was going on the whole way. So I knew the decommitment was coming, and I knew the commitment to Michigan would be coming soon too. We're all down at Ohio State's camp, when all that was going on. And I just kind of said something to a couple of the Ohio State coaches were like, where do you guys think you are right now with Kyle Kalis? A lot of rumors out there. Oh, no, we're good. We got control. We got him. No problem. Don't believe everything you're reading in the media. It's all a bunch of bull. We got Kyle locked, and I thought, you ain't got Kyle locked at all. You have no chance at Kyle. And it just showed where Ohio State was at that time. Just, it showed up on the field that year, and we, off the field was a disaster. And that just kind of showed where recruiting was. That was a snapshot when, some dolt like me knew way more than what they knew at the time, that stuff doesn't happen today with, when Urban Meyer showed up and Marc Pantoni and, now Ryan. I mean, that probably would not happen today. But it just showed where Ohio State was at the time. And I know Kyle got a lot of crap for his decision. And he made some statements that he probably regrets to this day, 18-year-old. But, I thought his logic was sound. He could have maybe postponed his decision and waited to see what happened to Ohio State. But, Urban didn't get hired until the end of November. And Kyle was the guy that really wanted to know who was going to be his coach, what system they were going to run, how can we go over my performance every week so I can get better. So I actually thought at the time, with the information Kyle had, choosing Michigan, I thought it was a pretty good choice by him. And it just how this recruiting can, it's a tough business, and it's a lot for these kids to process at a young age. We're seeing it today. We'll see it every year. But as we look back, Kyle gets a lot of crap from Ohio State fans, and I thought it was just sound. I thought it was knowing the kid the way I did. I thought uncertainty was just something that he wasn't going to deal with real well. And then he ends up going to Michigan, where, there was a lot of uncertainty there too with, Coach Drebno as his coach. And just, you never know in this business. I mean, you just don't know. You make the best choice you can make with the information that you have to process, and you hope it works out.
Yeah, I always liked Kyle. He was always good to me. He was always respectful. He was not, I know probably Ohio State fans won't understand this, but it just, he was a good kid, and he got, I don't want to say he panicked, but he clearly, I just remember that day when Tressel resigned or whatever. I was on the phone with guys all day, and I just remember two very distinct, different reactions. I was on the phone with Joshua Perry. Oh gosh, probably an hour or two that day. We were calling each other back and forth on what we were hearing and stuff. And Josh was so much more calm than Kyle. I could tell right away that Josh was going to stick this out if he could. And was more concerned about keeping everything together. And Kyle was like, "Oh my gosh, what's happening? What's going on? I can't believe that." Like there was two very different reactions, and it kind of foreshadowed one guy staying in the class and the other guy not staying in the class. But Kyle, the put on the field comment that is always referred to. I've always thought that was more of a joke, not a sarcasm or a joke. I mean, how did you ever take those comments from Kyle with the blood on the field thing?
I really didn't know how to take it because I knew the kid really well, and that's just not him. He's quiet. He's understated. He's not a jerk at all. I didn't know how to take it. So, and I didn't have the quote. I didn't hear him when he said it, how he said it. I don't know. I mean, that's not the kid I knew. I mean, he was a quiet, hardworking, he was the perfect Rick Fanati guy. And we both knew Rick Fanati well, coached at St. Ed's, and Rick with a lot of bull crap. So it was totally out of question, but I don't know, I don't know the messages Kyle got on Twitter. I can only imagine what they were. And sometimes you react in anger and you probably say something that today you wish you wouldn't. And if all the statements I made at 17 years old were held against me, that wouldn't be pretty. So I don't know. That was not the Kyle Kalis I knew. And it's interesting that when Urban got the job and he left that press at probably 6 or 7 o'clock in the evening on a Monday, the first call was to Kyle Kalis. Yep. Second was to Taylor Decker. So, Kyle had talent, and Kyle, whether it panned out or didn't pan out at Michigan, he had talent. And, it always makes me wonder, what if he had played for Ed Warner and Urban and, been in that Ohio State system? We'll never know. You can't go back. But Kyle made his choice. And I can't sit and say that he made a bad choice, because he really wanted to be committed early. He committed early to Tressel. I mean, he didn't want any part of the recruiting process. He wanted none of that. He just wanted to know where he was going to be and what they were going to run. And it's hard for that.
Yeah. Yeah. There haven't been so many of those lately. It's almost like that was almost a Brady Hoke thing, where Ohio State really had to defend its home territory. It has not materialized so much with Jim Harbaugh in terms of the Ohio State Michigan battles. In fact, a lot of the Ohio State Michigan recruiting battles the last couple of years with Harbaugh seem to revolve either around kids from Michigan or kids from elsewhere in the Midwest, not so much kids from Ohio, which I found kind of interesting. But obviously Zach Harrison was an exception to that. And we both covered Zach coming out of Olentangy Orange. That was kind of a roller coaster, more so than you might expect, just because Zach never really talked about it. There was a lot more fluidity to that one than I think people realize, just because Zach, again, really didn't do a lot of interviews. But Penn State was obviously a factor as well, but that got very dicey the last few months before Zach ultimately committed and signed with Ohio State. It's funny with Zach because we make fun of people who think like a single game makes a difference in a recruiting process. And we always laugh about that. Oh, so-and-so, team X beat team Y. So team X is automatically going to get this kid now. And we always laugh at that. And I'm not saying that was the entirety of Zach's decision process here. There was a lot of things that went into Zach's process. He was very thorough. He was very analytical, but the beating Ohio State put on Michigan, as Zach was in crunch time on his decision, really, and I hope he'll talk about this sometime. I don't know how much he will ever, but I think that was an eye-opening thing where everyone kind of expected Michigan to win that game that year. I think Michigan might have even been if they were a slight favorite, I think even, and it was a non-competitive game. Michigan's much heralded defensive line was a no-show. I mean, it was they got goose egged. And I think there was a realization there that was like, oh my God, I can't go up there and just lose to Ohio State 4 years in a row and get my teeth kicked in by my hometown school 4 years in a row. I think that was a huge turning point when at a time when he was very undecided. And, you kind of had Ohio State the whole way there.
Yeah.
So I know I think we got to the same point in that we both felt that ultimately going to a rival of his hometown school was going to not be able to win out, even though he maybe wanted to get away and do something different, that ultimately like it couldn't actually be Michigan. But what are your recollections of that stretch there the last couple months, as things got really crazy there and people had him to Michigan and then, obviously back to Ohio State?
Well, Al Washington was doing the recruiting for Michigan then, if you remember. And I just never heard anything from anyone. And, we weren't going to hear from Zach, but I never heard anything from anyone that made me think Michigan had him. I just never did. And I had a lot of faith in Johnson, and a lot of the things I was being told about, we know Zach's mom played a big part in this, and Zach's mom, would have had him be homeschooled for college if she could have done that. So I felt at the end of the day, it was going to be really hard when I knew Larry Johnson had mom pretty much won over, and it wouldn't have taken much for the hometown school to win mom over. Mom didn't want Zach going far from home. So I just felt that was going to be the detractor in this, was going to be mom. And then like what you mentioned, I'm the last guy that thinks one game determines recruiting, because I know it doesn't. But boy, when I saw that game, I thought the same thing you thought. We weren't working together at that time, but we were still talking. Man, this is probably the exclamation point at the end of the sentence. Mom is the basis of the sentence, and that beatdown is the exclamation point. And that's why I was pretty consistent the whole way that I had Ohio State getting him, when everybody in 24/7, I think I was the only guy that didn't switch the crystal ball pick to Michigan. I just never heard anything that made me think he was going there. So I hung in there the whole time with Ohio State, thinking that that's where he was going.
Yeah, and we had just got the FutureCast thing at Rivals, and where you could put in the picks, and I just sat there, and I didn't do anything, and then boom, November. I think that like Monday, I went and just boom, Ohio State. I said, I think I put a post on the board, said, "Hey, good morning, everybody." And there was my pick or whatever. But I always, if I would have had to have it on a school the whole way, I probably would have had it on Ohio State. But gosh, there were times where, especially early, I thought Penn State, if we're talking about, if we're making this a 400-meter dash, that first 100 meters, Penn State got off to an unbelievable start. And I just don't think they were able to carry that through. But it was dicey early, but then, and then here's the other thing, and maybe, I don't know, I think, again, if I could do a documentary on a recruit that I've covered, it might be Zach, just because he never said much. I would love to get like him to actually talk about some of these things, but like, I really think Ryan Day was way more his speed than Urban Meyer. That's not a knock on Urban. Urban's maybe the greatest recruiting head coach of all time. And people love her, kids love Urban. They love talking to Urban, but Zach is such a laid back guy that I think he connected more with Ryan Day. And I think between the Michigan game debacle from Michigan's standpoint and the relationship with Larry Johnson, and then you have Mom, who of course wanted him home, which is why that was a regional battle to begin with. And then I think Ryan Day walks into that living room and it's like, wow, this is like you can actually like let your guard down a little bit around Ryan Day. You can kind of relax a little bit, where with Urban, it's just nonstop like intensity. I think that factored in too. I would love to hear his thoughts on Ryan Day versus Urban, but I got the sense very much that Ryan Day was more his speed. So it's just one of those. It was interesting. It's two kids who really didn't love the spotlight very much when we talk about Kyle Kalis and Zach Harrison and kind of the paths they took. And we could probably go all day about some of these things, but it's just kind of interesting. Wanted to kind of reminisce on some of these with it. Hopefully or unfortunately, it was supposed to be the game week, but let's we can move on now. We can definitely reminisce on some other stuff down the road here, but there are some pressing things right now. Tomorrow, 5-star wide receiver Emeka Egbuka will make his commitment and then is expected to sign on Wednesday, 6 days from now. We've had him to Ohio State all the way. I think things little anxiety over the weekend with the Oklahoma visit, but Bill, your take on this? What's happened the last week or so, and where you have it right now?
Yeah, I think had it nailed the whole way in that Ohio State has the ball. Ohio State's in the command position. Now, did they want him going to Oklahoma? Heck no, he didn't. But he did. He went with his dad. I don't think you leave Washington and go to Oklahoma in December for a pleasure cruise. He was going there for a reason, to check it out. And I think, like you had said, he wants to have something to compare against Ohio State. I think we had that the whole way. And he loved it. I mean, the dad really liked it there too. So there was some consternation coming out of that. And I have a really good connection to one of the Oklahoma recruits, not Caleb Williams, to him, and through an intermediary. And that person felt like that kid was coming there. He felt Egbuka was coming to Oklahoma. And that kind of shook me a little bit. I don't get too caught up in recruits because, they think they're getting, kids lie to everybody. But, there was some consternation there. But I think once the guy got back home and got on the phone with Brian Day, Brian Hartline, I think OSU locked it back up. I feel totally confident that Emeka Egbuka Ohio State, on Friday, and he's going to sign with Ohio State in the first signing period, and OSU's got him. But to think that there wasn't a little bit of, I don't know what the right word is, tension or, concern, that wouldn't be true, because that visit went really good at Oklahoma. It's just a testament to the relationship that Ryan Day and Brian Hartline had formed with this kid going back a while, and I wouldn't discount having junior at Ohio State and then G. Scott Sr. they can kind of lean on as someone that's going a couple thousand miles from home, to play college football too. So I think, OSU's got him. They're going to get him. They're going to love him. He's a great player. But I think that trip to Oklahoma, I think there was a reason for a little bit of tension there on Ohio State's part.
Yeah, I agree. That's a lot of money and time to waste just to create some suspense around your decision. I mean, you could have driven down the street to Washington if you wanted to, create a second team scenario. There would have been easier ways to do that. I do think it's going to be Ohio State still on Friday. I have no reason to believe it's not at this point. Got some good sources close to Oklahoma, and they were very confident Sunday and Monday. They're not confident anymore. So it just seems like, I said this on the board, as much as it may benefit you and I for people to hang on our every word on a Sunday or Monday coming out of a visit weekend. I really don't think you get a full scope of how a visit went until Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday of the week, because you're still in that high, you're getting home. Once you get back into your routine and you start to be like, yeah, okay, that was fun, but now I have to actually sit down and think about this and make a decision. I think you get a clearer picture midweek of how the visit actually impacted things. And so, yes, please read our Sunday and Monday updates, but also come back on Wednesday and see, how things have been digested for a few days. And I just think when they sat down, and Brian Hartline's done such a good job here, it's hard for me to imagine him saying no to Brian Hartline. Just the time and commitment Brian Hartline has made to that, to that prospect. is really maybe unlike anything we've seen with Brian, just because usually he's gotten these guys locked up earlier. And so this has been a 2-year plus relationship. Who knows? I think Oklahoma did a great job here. I mean, clearly they were the team everyone was always concerned about, at least the last few months, because I think there was a sense of like, well, maybe this will just drag out and he'll never visit Oklahoma, and then he'll just have to go to Ohio State because where else will he go? But he really freaking like made sure he made that visit. Like, he really stuck to his guns on that, and so that had to be a little bit concerning. But here we go. I think they're getting a 5-star prospect on Friday. I think they're gonna pull this off. So, speaking of 5-star prospects from Washington, J.T. Tuimoloau, again, looking like a February signing from all I'm hearing still. I have not heard anything that would indicate he's going to bump this up for like next week. Anything new there on your end? You still Ohio State? I think you had Alabama 2 last time. Anything new to add there?
No, I still think the guy I don't think he's ready to make a decision yet. And it won't shock me if he doesn't sign on the second signing period. He doesn't have to. He does not have to sign in February. I mean, he can take this a little while he wants to. Wherever he signs, he's not going to report till June anyway. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't be surprised if he goes a little past that, but he won't go before the second signing period. So I think it's Ohio State, Alabama, maybe Oregon in there. I don't think Washington has a prayer. I've never thought they have a prayer. They just don't put linemen in the NFL, and that's where he wants to be. So again, I think the combination of, G. Scott Jr., Emeka committing to Ohio State, it gives a little familiarity of that Washington to Ohio connection, more than maybe a kid from Washington just dropping himself down in Tuscaloosa without knowing anyone there, no family connection at all. So I still think Ohio State's in really, really good shape there. A lot can happen, and I don't think we're going to hear anything soon, though. So, if you're the type that panics and, doesn't have the starting, this probably isn't the one you want to follow. But I think Ohio State I think they're in the right position right now to land JT.
Yeah, I agree. No real change for me from where I've been at, the last couple months. But, one interesting thing I was told this week, JT is never going to be the life of the party. He's never going to be the guy who's particularly vocal and outgoing. But he's been pretty unresponsive to even other recruits, really, the entire way. And I've actually been told the last couple of weeks he's a little more interactive, let's say, with some of the Ohio State guys. So read into that what you will. It's not a bad sign. I'm not going to sit here and say, well, that definitely means he's going to Ohio State or anything like that. I still think there's some time left for this to play out, but I found that interesting. So we'll see. We'll see if that means anything come February. But it sounds like he's at least making an effort to, maybe get to know some people and maybe he's doing this at Alabama. I've not heard. I can't really speak to what his level of contact is with like Alabama or Oregon guys. I really can't. So maybe he's just doing this with every school he's considering, and is just trying to make a little more effort to get to know some guys who could maybe be his future teammates. That's very possible that he's doing that for everybody. But I just know from the Ohio State standpoint, he's been a little bit more, responsive, I guess, to some of the guys. So we'll see what that means. That leaves us pretty much with, LSU. What in the world is going on there? Raesjon Davis, longtime Ohio State target, longtime LSU commit, told me about a week and a half ago, maybe 2 weeks ago now, that he's not signing in December. He's signing in February. That is not good for LSU. I don't care what. I mean, look, we can laugh off certain things, but if you're solid with your school and you're committed, there is no reason not to be signing next week. So That's interesting. Bill, I'll let you go first on this, but like, what are you hearing there? And do you agree on the February signing thing being a serious, maybe red flag there for if you're LSU?
Well, I've been, since we opened the scoop, that the lines of communication with Al Washington and Raesjon Davis are good. And I've been writing all along that I felt Ohio State had a great shot. I never really bought the old California connection. I know he's committed there. I know he liked it there. This is not the same program he committed to. And it gets worse by the month. It wasn't the same LSU even in August that he committed to. And boy, it didn't get there in October and September, November, and now we're in December. So bluntly, I don't think he's going to LSU. So that throws it wide open. Does that automatically send him to Ohio State? No, in my opinion. I think it opens it up. I think Ohio State's in a great spot to land this kid, but I would almost view this kid as a totally wide open recruit at this point, with Ohio State in a great spot. I think USC's in this one. I think a lot of schools can probably, I think once he doesn't sign with LSU, he's going to hear from everybody. And, maybe that's what he wants. So I feel really confident that if LSU doesn't put a gun to his head and make him sign next week, what's going to happen, I think LSU's out. And we go from there. If you look back since they instituted the two signing periods, I think 75 to 80% of the kids do sign early. So it's very common if where you sign early. Well, he's not. And there's a reason for that. And I think he's looking for a school. And I think it's, I hate percentages. I know you hate them too. I don't know how to put a percentage on this, but I think I would put Ohio State in the possibly / probably category. I think it's possible, maybe probable, that they get Raesjon Davis.
I would take Ohio State and USC and give the field at this point. I know there's some other schools I'm certainly going to be involved. How much of this is geographically based? That I think is the $1 million question. If there's some worry about homesickness or things like that, that's going to obviously play to USC's strength. And again, I think the Corey Foreman factor is a little bit interesting here. If Corey Foreman would make a decision to stay home, that could maybe sway things a little bit. But I agree. I don't think he's going to LSU. I think he's looking for a way out. And I think by delaying until February, he's buying himself 6 or 8 weeks or whatever that is to figure out what the school is for him. I think Ohio State, Al Washington, given the hurdles here, recruiting a committed prospect to the defending national champions, with no visits because of COVID. For Al Washington to have them in this position, I think is an unbelievable recruiting job by Al. And certainly they can do this. And again, would it be a good sign if the family flew out here in like January? Yes. Do they need to? I don't think they need to. Raesjon's been here twice. He's been to Columbus twice. I don't think he needs to do that. So it's going to be interesting. And this LSU thing is just falling apart. And when you look at this, he commits. The defensive coordinator he committed to leaves almost immediately. They replace him with Bo Pelini, who no one seems to think is going to be back next year. So now you're on defensive coordinator number 3 since you committed. I don't think there's good relationships there with the coaches at Matt. I'm sure he loves Ed Orgeron, but with the defensive staff, the guys he's going to be dealing with every day, I don't know. It just doesn't look good for LSU right now. And I do think USC has benefited a little bit here because it's drug out to this point, and now USC's off to a decent start, and they win another game or two here. Certainly looks like Clay Helton's not going anywhere at this point. So maybe there's a little more stability at USC this year than there was a year ago at this time. Maybe that helps them, claw back into this too. But I would go Ohio State and USC are kind of 1A and 1B for me right now. And it just, for me, again, how important is geography? geography is not that important. I think it'll be Ohio State. If the more they've thought about this, and with COVID and travel restrictions and everything else, if the more they've thought about this, the more maybe something in closer home, then of course, I think USC at that point becomes a strong candidate, and any other Pac-12 school that may want to get involved. But we'll see. Going to be interesting. I think that one has a chance to be really fascinating down the stretch. So it's interesting. We've kind of complained the last couple of years that everything's over in December. There's no drama. But with Raesjon Davis and J.T. Tuimoloau, there could be some real stuff to talk about here in January once the early signing period's over. So hopefully you guys will stick with us and read our stuff and be on the site and be following all that. So we enjoy doing the podcast, and we enjoy kind of keeping you guys up to date on the message board. So hopefully you guys will keep tuning in. That's pretty much it, I guess, for this week. We've covered a lot of ground here, so I think we'll probably sign off now at this point. But again, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.